what makes America the greatest country in the world.
Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen.
Stood up for what was right. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one.
It's time we started talking. Pain isn't something we talk about.
All we can ever do for our heroes is remember them. And they gave up two lives, the one they were living in and the one they would have lived. They gave up everything for our country, for us. Let's pray for freedom and justice.
Only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight.
Less than 1% of Americans serving in uniform. Some veterans not getting the timely care that they need. The good news is that in recent years we've made historic investments to boost the VA budget.
What is it? Why should we care?
We should care about press freedom
because we were informed.
In democratic societies, free, diverse, and pluralist media enable public debates and are essential checks
You don't
on
look
power.
satisfied. Let's discuss.
Hey guys,
how you guys doing?
Welcome to Vet podcast. New episode.
Episode number 9.
Yeah, episode 9. This episode, if it's your first time listening, thanks for coming. This podcast is produced every week, and as a short reminder, Vet is a non-profit educational project dedicated to assist veterans with adjustment to civilian lifestyle and to provide assistance in obtaining your VA and other available benefits that you have earned. So now let's get into the show.
Today's topic, we're going to talk about a little bit of the 100% rating, the permanent and total.
VA defines the word permanent and total slightly different that you would guess. And for that matter, the word total doesn't mean total when discussing disability. And those are just terms for VA.
Yeah.
So as a short answer, those ratings are not protected unless you wait certain amount of time, but we'll get into that. So any rating can be modified by VA at any time depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
So
in the language of the VA, the word permanent doesn't necessarily mean your benefits is permanent. To have a 100% P&T rating only applies that your dependents will also get benefits. Common ones are Champ VA for medical, Chapter 35 I think for education, things like that. So at least you know you're good there. Most of the time when you're permanent total, there's not a likelihood of them wanting to reevaluate you, but they absolutely have that opportunity if they want to, and currently they seem to be going that route anyways. One way to protect your rating, you should hold it for at least 20 years. If you're rated at any percentage for 20 years or more, they won't lower you unless there's some kind of fraud involved. So if you're BSing, or if you're not really having this issue or the severity of that issue, then there's a chance that they can change it even though it's been 20 years or even though they say permanent total.
So how do you know if your rating is temporary or permanent?
You could go on your original award letter and look for the codes that the VA likes to confuse you with. Look at your disability and see if it says anything like no further exams are scheduled. That's a good chance that your rating's going to be permanent because they're not going to be messing with you. They're not thinking that it's going to get any better anytime soon. If you see that your dependents are eligible for education, or if they're eligible for Champ VA, then you're pretty much a permanent total rating because they're not going to allow your dependents to get these extra benefits unless they're not going to mess with you in the future.
Yeah, and those phrases may be slightly different from one VA office, from one VA regional office to another, but in general that would mean exactly what Joe just said. If you see future exams are scheduled or similar, or something that would reference to that, that might be a trigger for you that you might be scheduled for another CNP exam.
Yeah, so definitely look when you get your award letter, especially when it comes to any mental health rating, you'll see something like, we think this condition has a potential to get better, so we're going to reevaluate you in the future. Usually that's about 2 to 5 years down the road. But what they're hoping is that you don't have any medical records, so you're thankful of your rating and you just go about your life. Then you'll get a letter in the mail saying, hey, let's reschedule you, and you don't have any medical records, so there's a good chance they could lower you. So even though you got that rating percentage and you're happy with it, make sure you still build up your medical records to show that that condition hasn't changed. Because if you get that letter and you don't have records, I think you have about 90 days to show that that condition's at the same or worse, or there's a good chance they're going to lower you.
Yeah. At the same time, there always could be a mistake involved when establishing the permanence of your rating, and it's actually up to you to know what to do. Nobody will do it for you. So as Joe said, so if you got those 100%,
protect yourself.
Protect yourself, and if you get better, like just going to the doctor, one or another doctor, mental health, and it actually gets better, yes, in this case VA would have a
good reason to
lower you. Yeah. If it doesn't get better, so VA wouldn't have any reasons to lower you.
Yeah.
So that would be a best probably answer, not just to protect yourself, but just to make sure to give them all the evidence that would allow them to make a
fair assessment of
right?
Yeah, of your disabilities.
Also, like 20 years would give you pretty much a good chance of that VA would never lower your percentage. But as a basic rule, if you hold 100% permanent rating for 10 years uninterrupted, most likely it's not going to be lowered in future.
Yeah, you should be safe for the most part unless there is some kind of fraud issue involved.
Yeah, and in very broad terms, 100% permanent and total rating changes a bit when you have held it for 10 years. It doesn't matter if it's schedule or TDIU rating. At the 10-year mark, your spouse become eligible for additional benefits, no matter how you die or live.
So if you have that 100% rating, whether it's unemployable or just due to your natural self, after 10 years, if you get ran over by a bus, your spouse will be taken care of. Before 10 years, if you get ran over by a bus, then more than likely your spouse won't be able to get the DIC rating, which they'll be able to get the widow's pension, or at least apply for it. So under 10 years, it depends on how you pass and if it's connected to your service or not.
Also, the rules that govern the 100% ratings are coming from CFR. So you might want to take a look at section 3.104, finality of the decision, section 3.105, revision of decisions, section 3.461, dependency and indemnity compensation, 3.702, dependency and indemnity compensation as well, 3.951, preservation of disability rating, and 3.952, protected ratings.
Yeah, and this is all under the 38 CFR, which is all the federal rules that we're dealing with.
Yeah, so those paragraphs would give you a good explanation about how long you should hold your rating, what you should do, and how can you change it if something happens. If you get scheduled for CNP exam and somehow it ends up that VA lowers your rating, so what should you do? So the other question would be, as we already covered it in the previous section, but once again, what is individual unemployability and if you are protected when you get that 100% rating?
Yeah, the individual unemployability allows the VA to pay veterans at the 100% rate, even though their service-connected disabilities don't really get there because of the way the VA math is done. It's almost like as a sliding scale kind of rule. The main thing with the 100% or with the unemployable rating, you want to at least be 60% with one condition, or 70% with your total conditions, with at least one of those conditions being at least at a 40%. And showing that these conditions, because of the severity of them, that you have no ability to get gainful or substantial employment.
Yeah.
And those are the main words, gainful and substantial employment.
Yeah, that's the main phrase you're looking at. When you're 100% permanent and total, you shouldn't care about those words too much. But I would say yes.
Okay.
But when you're 100% TDIU, then substantially gainful and ability to maintain steady employment would play a big role in future VA decisions.
Yeah.
So what is that substantially gainful?
Substantial gainful employment is simply a full-time employment that provides income higher than the poverty level. What was it, last year? I think the poverty level was $12,300, right around there. But say you can't work because of your service-connected back condition, you know, and you're a truck driver, something like that, and there's no way you can keep doing this, you might be able to get the unemployable because it's affecting your ability to work.
Are there any other eligibility requirements for that?
Yeah, kind of like how we were saying, the main thing for the unemployable, you're at 60% with one condition, or 70% with your total or combined conditions, with at least one of those being at 40% or more. And not the way that we do math, but the way the VA does math. So if the VA is paying you at 70%, you're good to go. But if you just count the individuals up, no. And then in those cases where you fall under those two categories, whether you're 60% with one or 70 total, you have the ability to apply for it and request the unemployable. It's not guaranteed, and certainly within the last year or so, a lot of guys can tell you it's not guaranteed. It's not as easy as it used to be, but you have the right to request it if you need it and apply for it.
VA decides total disability different from other agencies.
Yeah.
As you can guess, different from Social Security Administration. So what would be the difference?
The main thing with Social Security would require a claimant to be totally disabled after a certain age, education, or work experience. VA only considers service-connected disabilities for unemployable. So if you got in a car wreck a year ago and you got out in the military 20 years ago, they're not going to give you the unemployable because you can't work now because of this car wreck. The VA only cares about your military. Social Security, they're more curious about why you can't work in general, but the way they rate you and the way they evaluate those disabilities are different between the two.
Okay, that might be a dumb question, but TDIU, in my understanding, it's temporary, but can it be permanent?
Yeah. As long as something says that there's a likelihood that that there's no future exams are scheduled, or that it'll literally say permanent and total on it, more than likely you probably won't get evaluated. But if you're a younger guy, or if they think a disability could get better, they could give you the unemployable rating, but there's potential that they could reevaluate you and lower that and knocking you out of that 100% payment.
Yeah, pretty much. If you TDIU at 100% and you don't feel like that you're gonna have any future exams, or that's what you get on the paper, so that no future exams are scheduled, keep in mind that most likely you will be scheduled for exams in future since you are TDIU. And it's more likely that you're going to be scheduled than if you are 100% permanent and total.
Yeah.
So, and VA can schedule an exam at any time and for any reason.
Yeah.
So it's not because you decided that probably you feel better or you feel worse and you would like to have another CNP exam. No, it's just because somebody at VA decided, and that probably one of your doctors.
Yeah, yeah, they've probably seen something in your medical records, like say you're going to the VA for medical, that shows this condition got better, there's usually some reason they scheduled it. They just didn't pull your name out of a hat. But the main thing what you always want to do to back yourself is support yourself with medical records showing this condition's the same or worse than the last time they saw you.
Yeah, so if your CNP exam shows improvement, you'll probably be advised or proposed that your 100% rating goes down.
Yeah. But if you got records to show that it's the same, you should be okay. But either way, don't miss that exam that they send you to. Go to it. If you have records to back yourself up, bring them with you to support yourself. Things like that. Don't go to that exam flat-footed because you might get screwed. Or you might not like the decision they make on you.
Yeah, most likely. So, do you need a permanent rating assignment, or TDIU is good enough?
You don't need it. I think if you hit the 10-year mark or the 20-year mark, you should be okay for the vast majority. If your kids are going to school, if you're trying to get your family signed up for Champ VA, then you definitely want that permanent rating assigned, or they won't be able to get those benefits. But more than likely, if you're at 100% for 10, 20 years, you should be fairly safe unless there's some kind of fraudulent issue there. And if there is, you would know about it more than anybody else anyway, so you should prepare yourself for that.
Yeah, and also if you hold that 100% TDIU for significant amount of time, so most likely after you hit the 10 years mark, it wouldn't matter too much if it's still TDIU or if it's permanent in total.
Yeah.
So you pretty much can ask you can ask VA to re-evaluate your current situation and change your 100% TDIU into 100% permanent in total.
Yeah, and you could definitely request that, because if they could request an exam on you, you could certainly request the same exam for yourself. So if you got those records showing that, you could request the exam and say you want to get evaluated for it.
Yep, and once again, all those situations I described in CFR, those paragraphs that I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. So if you want to educate yourself, take a look at it.
Yeah.
And let's take a deeper look into protected VA disability ratings. So what are those? How are they protected? Let's talk about those 10 years and 20 years rule.
Yeah. So if a rating's been in effect for 5 years, it can't be reduced unless there shows some kind of improvement. And the VA needs documentation to show that improvement. So that's more than likely why they're going to send you to that outside medical doctor to evaluate the severity of that condition. After 10 years, the disability can't be terminated if it's been in effect for 10 years. Compensation can be reduced if there's some kind of improvement. Unless, the major thing is fraud again. If there's fraud, then of course there's a chance they're going to lower you, and they should.
But they have to prove it.
Yeah, they got to prove it too, so just don't be one of those guys. The 20-year rule, once you hit 20 years, you're pretty much safe. Like, they're not going to mess with you. They're going to leave you alone unless there's a fraud issue.
Yeah, 100% rule. The VA must prove your medical situation has materially improved as a result, and as a result, you are able to perform substantial work. And 100% rule, TDIU, I guess.
Yeah. So the main thing, if you can work, then you should be working. But if you can't, then you can't.
Yeah, as a basic rule, 5 years, you might get CNP exam. At 10 years mark, highly unlikely. And 20 years, most likely not.
Yeah, you could relax a little bit.
Yeah, or move on with something else. So 100% rule is much more difficult to have decreased. VA must prove that your health has materially improved and that you are now able to perform substantial work. And the way it can be proven, if somebody at VA looks at your medical record, or they get a tax statement or some kind of documentation from Social Security showing that this year or that year you made that much money. So that would be another trigger. And like what kind of work you've been doing and how actually it affects your life.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much those two conditions. Your VA medical file and another Social Security reports how much you are making each year. Yep, so but it's not up to you to prove it, but it's up to VA to prove that something changed in your life.
Yeah.
And definitely, like every time you visit a doctor, so you giving, you're telling the doctor like what changed in your life and how does it affect you now. So they definitely would have that file on hand.
Yeah.
So another big question, if you're 100% rating, doesn't matter, TDIU or permanent and total, should you continue filing for the disabilities? I mean, not filing fraudulent disabilities and frivolous claims, but like real claims that you wasn't able to file at the first day, or for some reason you forgot about them or something popped out.
Yeah. Definitely the 100% rating isn't the end to everything that you could potentially gain from the VA when it comes to your benefits. You want to really look at yourself and see if you're in need of anything extra. There's a few scenarios we could kind of go around to try to figure out if you should or shouldn't, but if it's something minor, like say like ringing in the ears, I would say leave it alone. But say you get cancer and you're a Vietnam vet, it might be wise to file for it, even though you're at 100% already. The first scenario we got going on.
Wait, is it true that most of VSOs would tell you
leave it alone?
Leave it alone.
Yeah, and the reason a lot of service officers will tell you to leave it alone is because at the 100% rate, there's potential that they could look, say, like if your knee or your back is a part of that rating, and say, okay, well, we think this condition's better now, and lower that and knock you out of the 100%, and now you're stuck at 90. There is that potential. And that's one reason you really want to look at yourself and see if the condition that you're going to apply for is worth it or has good odds in your favor, or you're even just to protect your family in case you pass from this condition. But you really want to look at it. But if it's something minor like ringing in the ears, something like that, you might want to leave it alone. It just really kind of comes down to what you, but I would say most service officers would probably tell you to leave it alone once you hit the 100% rate.
Yeah. So let's take a closer look at those scenarios when you don't want to leave it alone, or maybe you want to leave it alone. Yeah. So let's say you're 100% TDIU. So in this case, should you still be filing for those ringing in the ears condition or knees or something like that?
You could. I would say, one, before you even try to file for anything, make sure you have your records in order greater than 90% of the claims that are filed. You want to show that you're diagnosed. You want to show that it's absolutely due to your service. Whether it's doctor letters, records in your military records to show that this condition happened and it's due to your service, things like that. But you want to make sure that you're really settled and you have a good shot at this. The main thing, if you're filing at 100% and you're not permanent, what you're trying to argue for more than likely is to be permanent. So you could file another condition like, say, the PTSD if you never touched it yet, and go for that and file for the permanent total on top of it, because if the PTSD comes back at 30, 50, 70% on top of your 100% rating, then there's a likelihood that your conditions are worse, and the likelihood of scheduling you in the future may not be as great anymore.
Yeah. Also, so if you're 100% TDIU, and as you figure out it's not protected, so most likely it would be a good advice to file for additional disabilities if you have, maybe as a even for the minor ones, because later on you can rely on those disabilities, and they can be a secondary condition for something else.
Yeah.
And that secondary condition would bump up your rating.
Yeah, your overall. Yeah. Yeah,
And
just be careful with, once you hit the 100%, you really want to question what you're going for and what your odds are.
So I guess VSOs would frequently tell veterans, do not rock the boat.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. But it's a safe bet in general, but you want to look at yourself as the individual and what your conditions are. And if you think those conditions are worth filing for and you have the backing already there, you know, you're already diagnosed, you already got a doctor agreeing that it's due to your service, that's affecting your life, I would say go for it.
Yeah. So the second scenario would be you get your letter, you got your ratings, but something wrong with your effective date, but that would be another scenario when you wanna file for revision.
Yeah,
because those effective dates would give you.
Yeah, you're missing out on back pay. And you're missing out on that time frame, so that 10-year mark could help you out if it's 6-month difference, you know. And so yeah, you definitely want to look at your effective dates. So it's worth arguing. That's certainly worth arguing.
Yeah, pretty much. You want to get the earliest effective date possible.
Yeah.
And as long as it's on paper and you can back it up, so go for it. Money-wise, so if your effective days is not correct even by 1 year, you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars of back pay.
Yeah. And that money could definitely help you and your family, so then you're entitled to it, so go for it.
Yeah. So another scenario would be special monthly compensation.
Yeah, these are separate conditions that doesn't necessarily give you a rating, but because of your conditions you deserve higher care. A common one that you would see from a lot of male members would be the erectile dysfunction, which would be I think they call it a K award, or maybe it's an M award. But that you won't necessarily see a rating for, they'll just pay you a little extra on top of it. And so special monthly compensation, a good rule of thumb there is if you're 100% rated and you get another 60%. So say you're 100% and then you file for PTSD and they give you 70, then you'd get the special monthly compensation, which will probably push you closer to about $3,200 to $3,500 a month, something like that.
Yeah, so
you get a little bit more out of it.
Yeah, so eventually there are a lot of different kinds of monthly compensation.
Yeah.
But there are,
yeah, most of them are serious. You're missing legs, severe burns, paralyzation.
But it goes down to be if you're housebound or not.
Yeah. So that 3,000 mark, if you're in a situation where you're paralyzed because of your service, or you lost legs or limbs because of your service, that 3,000 mark isn't going to necessarily work for you guys. So you certainly should apply and go for more because you guys deserve it more.
Yeah. So also if you're a single vet and have 100% ratings and at least 60% rating for one wholly separate disability condition, you might be entitled for that $350 bucks a month in disability compensation, and that would be a statutory method of getting SMC.
Yeah.
And the second one is, I guess, most common, the one that you're paralyzed or something prevents you to leave your house.
Yeah.
So you are housebound. So it's called. So loss one of multiple extremities, sensory organs like reproductive organs, eyes, might entitle you to one of those SMC compensations.
Yeah.
Another scenario would be protection against future reductions.
Yeah. There's always the potential that they could reduce you. You see it a lot when it comes to mental health or cancer issues. What you want to try to show there, and similar to what we've been saying, is that you want to show that that condition is either the same or that it's worse. And the easiest way you could do that is having current medical records showing that. The main thing is you want to build your records up, because you'll have about a 90-day window to prove yourself. If the VA says we're going to drop your 100% to 20%, 10%, something like that, and you're like, what the hell, that's a lot of money I'm going to be missing out on, and I'm used to this, and this is helping my bills and everything. And so if you have medical records to back yourself, you should be okay to go. If you don't have records, you better start figuring out real quick, because then within 90 days they're going to lower you.
Yeah. There's another case that might be applicable also. Let's say you got 100% TDIU, and you might say to yourself, oh, I'm good, I'm 100%, so I'm dropping my 2 other claims that I have right now going on. But 3 years down the road, you got another letter from VA saying that we would like to conduct a CNP exam on you, and sure thing, you go through CNP exam and you got lower rating. So now you're not 100%, now you're back to your like 60 and 20%, or maybe like 50 and 10%, not TDIU. And you dropped those 2 claims 3 years ago. So at this point, it might be much more difficult for you to prove those 2 claims that you dropped than when it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because even if your rating would go down to like 60%, you could still be getting those secondary conditions for those 2 claims that you dropped 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So you would end up not with 60%, but you would end up maybe with 70% or 70 or like 80%.
Yeah, and that's certainly a true thing too. So like what you want to do is build your base up. So if they try to lower you, the best they can lower you is to 90. It's still a decent drop, and the benefits absolutely change, but at least you're not dropping to a 20. And at 90%, you could always turn around and go for the unemployable if you had to. You know,
yeah.
So you could play that game.
So pretty much that secondary service condition could be helpful to you even at 100% ratings.
Yeah.
As well. And it's not always about the money or about proving your future claim. You can always get more attention to those conditions that are on your file, even though you're not suffering from them that much as you've been suffering like 2-3 years ago. But if it comes up, you would have, I would say, better treatment for that condition than if you would never ask for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So there is another, I would say, questionable scenario why you wanna still filing when you're 100%. You might want to continue battling or fighting, and that's the right word, because in this case that guy would be fighting. He would never stop. Those could be like frivolous claims or like claims that are not based on anything, but as everybody gets older, those conditions might pop up, and that's wouldn't be the case of frivolous claims.
Mm.
So somebody who is like 80 years old and fighting for like new claim every next year or like every year, he might justify him filing those claims because he is taking care of future generations.
Yeah, and certainly, like, if it wasn't for the Vietnam vets going through everything they did when it comes to VA and their benefits, I don't think we would be anywhere where we're at when it comes to our benefits. And so I do believe it's our turn and our generation's turn to fight this a little bit further to make sure everybody has a fair shake at this.
Yeah. So, but as been said, that's very questionable. So you need to have a lot of time in your possession, and you definitely want to be somebody who is 60 or 70 years or older, because I guess at that age you would be having more and more disabilities piling up on top of each other. Yeah. So in a summary, those would be like 4 or 5 scenarios where a vet should be continuing fighting for new disabilities.
Yeah, and there's certainly other scenarios that could play in. So you really want to question what's going on with you personally and your medical issues and see if it's worth your time. If it's something minor, even if it bothers you, it may not be worth it. If it's something major and there's potential to support your family in case you pass, or support other veterans as they go for their claims, or even just to try to get that permanent and total rating, then it should be worth it. But you make sure you have your records to support what you're trying to go for, and make sure that you're not just fighting it to fight it. You want real reasons to be pushing it once you hit that 100%.
Yeah, right. And if you got any other ideas or maybe scenarios that we didn't cover, just let us know on Facebook or Twitter or like whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Come back often. Feel free to subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. All links are in podcast notes. And as always, Joe, do you have any book or like you would like to suggest?
I've been reading George Carlin's Brain Droppings lately because he's funny. I like George Carlin. What about you?
Well, I would go the same with Joe Carlin. So I like his stand-up. Stand-ups, especially about politicians. So it was a great one.
Yeah.
Some stuff doesn't make sense, and he was right.
Yeah.
But great guy. And as a movie, probably a one that most of you know, A Few Good Men, old movie from 1992. I like it.
I've never seen it.
No?
No.
Great one.
Yeah.
And quote of the day.
If you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy or yourself, you will succumb in every battle.
Sun Tzu.